some of the other sports that are played here at Windsor are very competitive, and quite a few people have sort of almost been code hoppers. They've sort of jumped off rugby. Queensland were exceptional in that game. They didn't make a mistake until the 70th minute. And I really believe that if the Wallabies are going to beat this British Lions team, we have to play mistake-free rugby.
Was it Marto's fault or was it Campo's fault? We have Marto on every week. I keep saying it's your fault, mate.
When you have a chat to him, Martin, that he should have caught the damn thing. But look, David...
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
What a pleasure this is. It's been a long time since we've spoken, and he's always been very generous with his time. Always loved talking to him. What a legend of Australian rugby. He won absolutely everything there was to win. And that was the Grand Slam tour in 84. Came here and then to NZ in 86. Won a series against the All Blacks. Doesn't happen that often. 3-test series. Won a World Cup in 91. Played against the Lions in 89 too. Nick Farr-Jones, welcome, mate.
There you go, mate. Really nice to catch up again. I'll correct you, mate. We didn't win everything there was to win. There was one series that we lost in 89. I think we're about to talk about it.
We're about to talk about that. Look, having the Lions in Australia, just how important is that for Aussie rugby right now?
Oh, look, it's critical. Just to have an interest from the old rusted-on rugby people, some of whom we've lost in the last couple of years. They've become a bit disenchanted. Some of the other sports that are played here at Windsor are very competitive, and, quite a few people have sort of almost been code hoppers. They've sort of jumped off rugby. Some people, I'd say, were, traditional rusted on. But I think really importantly, with the next generation coming through, the younger kids have got to start to know who, the best of the Wallabies are, and they've got to have heroes and what have you. And I think that's been lacking in Australian rugby the last few years. So this is a critical tour from that perspective, but also, as you can imagine, from a revenue perspective. We're $60 million in debt. We need to have some revenue flows that, one, can repay that, but two, build our game, particularly at the base, the grassroots level.
Look, I mean, the Lions bring it, don't they? And it's such a travelling show at the moment. I mean, I know you've got the Ashes coming as well. I mean, you get the double banger in Australia this year. But, when they come down from the Northern Hemisphere, I love everything about their fans. I mean, they're coloured up, they spend money, they've generally really good humoured, and they're going to bring some hell of a noise to that. If you go back to 2001 especially, I remember that Brisbane test, that Bread of Heaven started singing, and it sounded like a home game for their lot.
Absolutely. I mean, that was at the Gabba, which is the cricket ground. I was actually just reading about that 2001 tour, and of course John Eales was captain, and then the boys had won the World Cup in 99. But John said that the Lions won the toss. Of course, Martin Johnson was their captain, and they were playing at the Gabba, and so Martin straight away to Eales, he said, "We're back." So that's how that game kicked off. But look, it was a sensational day, and John O'Neill, the chief executive of Australian Rugby, sort of realised that we'd been ambushed because the whole place was just covered in red jerseys, and he actually spent $80,000 for the next test in Melbourne, handing out gold jerseys, gold scarves, gold hats.
Good call. Yeah,
it worked. So it's phenomenal. You're right. 40,000 people, they say, have come down from the United Kingdom. It's great for our economy. It's great for our cities. As you say, you get $2 Australian dollars for a quid. So they're having cheap beer and they're just loving it. And most of the time, these guys and gals have been preparing and looking forward to this for 3, 4, 5 years. They do a lot of planning, and they come down with groups, and they really love it. It's of course the rugby is important, but just coming to a country like Australia and New Zealand and South Africa every 4 years is very special for them.
Yeah, and that 2001 tour, I mean, the Lions won that first one, and I remember up until halftime in that second test, it looked like they were going to bury Australia as well. Australia came back and then, of course, famously won that series. How important to get off in Brisbane for the Wallabies, even if you don't win that test, just to be close and actually give the self-belief that says, hey, we can hang with these guys or we can beat them?
I think it's critical just for the whole continued interest in the series. I mean, if we do get well beaten, a lot of the interest will drop off. People will be wondering, is there any chance that we could go down to Melbourne in a week's time and possibly knock them over? And I think that, the Lions will look back to 2001, the only time that they've lost a series in Australia. and they won't be complacent if they have a big win. And I'm pretty sure their coaching staff and their leadership will understand and recall what happened in 2001. They'll certainly be reminded. So I think it's really important, for many reasons that Australia, I sort of compare it to, when people say, what are the realistic chances of this Wallaby team against this, star-studded, powerful British Lions team? And I sort of compare it, without wanting to talk about rugby league in the third state of origin, but Queensland were exceptional in that game. They didn't make a mistake until the 70th minute. And I really believe that if the Wallabies are going to beat this British Lions team, we have to play mistake-free rugby. We cannot afford, sort of crooked lineouts. We can't afford for our scrum to be smashed. We can't afford drop ball and poor skill levels. We have to play to the very top of our game, I think, to beat this British Lions team.
What are your thoughts on Joe Schmidt? Do you he's beloved here in New Zealand. Do you like him, and do you like what you think he's brought so far, given what we saw at the end of year tour last year, which showed so much promise? Yeah,
look, I certainly do. I don't really know Joe, but what I heard of what he did in Ireland, of course, was sensational. I think he's a very calm, methodical leader and coach. I think he's great with his selections. I think he knows how to motivate the individual as well as the collective. And I think he understands where some of our weaknesses will be, but where our strengths are. And look, I'm very sad that we're losing him. It would have been great if he had have committed to take this team through to the World Cup in 2027. But I fully understand the rationale for his decision. It's all based around, his family. And I really wish him well, but I think he's going to have left the Wallabies in much better shape than when he started.
Can you believe it, Nick, that I think a lot of us here in New Zealand are even thinking that the All Blacks France, because we've won this series against France and it's not the full-strength French team, that the All Blacks are the entree to the main course on Saturday night because the games naturally dovetail into each other. It's a great double-header for rugby fans, mate.
It's fantastic. I mean, rugby needs it down here in the Southern Hemisphere. We all know that we need a bit of a pump up, and I think it's going to be a wonderful weekend. I'm really looking forward to this test on Saturday. I haven't looked forward to a rugby test like this for a long time. I mean, since the 2023 World Cup, but the less we talk about that from a Wallaby perspective, the better. Look, we're really excited. As I said, the guys individually, collectively have really got to step up, but Joe will have them in the right frame, and the guys know how important it is for them individually, but also for the game in this country.
I mean, you're such a modest man. And when I listed the achievements in that amazing 6-7 year period from the mid-80s through to 90s, and of course you came back again and played against the Box, and career ended in 93. You just look at what that Australian team did. That Grand Slam tour was absolutely legendary. Coming here to New Zealand and beating us, Ireland did it a couple of years ago. That's the only other time since, France did it, let me say, in 94. But it doesn't happen in a 3-test series. Hardly ever does it. You go on to win the World Cup. That 89 tour, though, against the Lions, you look at those pictures now and compare those to 2013. The game looks so different. Everything about it looks so different. I mean, the grounds are obviously improved so much, but even just the way the game is played.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, I look back and obviously, there's been some functions and I've seen some of the highlights of 89. I mean, we played fantastic rugby. It was the first time that we played at the new stadium at Moore Park and, the Aussie Stadium. And we scored 4 great tries and conceded none against the Lions. 2 weeks later, we went up to Ballymore in Queensland to hopefully win the series. And I don't know if your viewers would recall, but we were ambushed. There's no doubt about that. I've got no problems at all with the tactics.
Man.
But clearly the Lions went out there. Roger Utley was their coach. He was a headmaster at some private school in England, and Ian McGeechan, the great Scottish wizard, was the assistant coach. But there's no doubt that their tactics were basically, we've got to beat the crap out of these guys and don't miss the opportunity. And it was basically, and it would have been talked about, I have no doubt, Nick Farr-Jones, he's the bloke with the C next to his name in the program. His game will unravel and the team will unfold around him. Now, I think we only lost by 6 points in the end, but it was just a dockyard brawl, that second match. And, I remember I recently saw some video highlights at post-match conference, and I just said, look, this is open warfare. The Lions have declared their hand, and the third test, we are going to be properly prepared. When I reflect on, the third test then, and everyone talked about Campo and the glaring mistake that he made with a few minutes
was it Marto's fault or was it Campo's fault? We have Marto on every week. I keep saying it's your fault, mate.
When you have a chat to him, Martin, that he should have caught the damn thing. But look, David clearly, he took the ball behind our line.
Yeah.
The obvious thing was to put it down 22.
Put it down.
Or putt it out. We defend the next few minutes. We win the game. We win the series. But I was proud as a young captain. Campo got hugely criticised after that game, and the criticism grew louder and louder each day after the Saturday test. And I think it was on the Thursday, as a young captain, I wrote an open letter which was published in the Courier Mail in Queensland and the Sydney Morning Herald. And it was basically in defence of Campo. And I said, look, Campo, I've played with you for 5 years. I know what a brilliant player you are. I know how hard you work to perfect your game. I said, if I was selecting the team tomorrow, you'd be the very first player. But most importantly, I went on to say, Bob Dwyer, our coach, had have said, Campo, I'm going to select you again, but thou shalt kick out on the full in your 22. Yes. You would have destroyed the essence of what Campo was about. He was a bloke who was never going to die wondering if he could beat the tackle. He always walked the tightrope. And as we know in life, when you walk the tightrope in life, you're going to fall off occasionally. The thing is to learn quickly and don't make those mistakes regularly. But I'm pretty sure I was vindicated when 91 rolled around 2 years later.
That pass in the semi-final over the shoulder against us, mate.
Mate, and I'm sure you know that after every World Cup, and we've had 10 of them now in rugby, but all the journalists get to vote for the man of the tournament. Back then in 91, you only had print, TV and radio. You didn't have all the streamers and all the various, new avenues of journalism. But I think about 150 journos voted for the player of the tournament after 91. Campo unanimously was voted the player of the tournament from a winger.
There you go.
I mean, I know you had a bloke called Jonah Lomu who did something similar from the wing position.
Yep. 4 years later.
I'm sure when you look back at Campo learning and giving him that license to do whatever he wanted to do on the field, that first try against you guys in the semi-final, Bob Dwyer always said, you've got to run straight. If you run a crossfield, you won't be in my team. We got a quick ruck ball. I could hear him coming off his right wing. He ran left straight across the paddock. I hit him with a drift pass. He ran straight across field, past about 5 of your guys.
Yeah.
That was the brilliance of David. So lessons learned, in 89 against the Lions. But whilst I still wake up at 2 a.m. with the cracks in the ceiling getting wider when I think about 89, I wouldn't, want a series win against the Lions if it was meant that we didn't win a World Cup. So lessons learned, we put some starch in the pack, and 2 years later we went on to be world champions.
Who wins it then? Call it the first test for us up in Brisbane, mate.
Oh, look, I'd sadly have to say the Lions based on what I've seen. Our performance against Fiji, whilst Fiji were outstanding, their recycling of possession, we know what they can do with possession, was great. I just think that pack that's made up of, England and Ireland will be just hugely powerful. I can't see our pack getting on top. And, when you throw those Scottish into the back line as well, it's going to be really hard to defend, but it'll be a great atmosphere. As I said, we have to play mistake-free. The guys have to just concentrate on the process, just trying to ignore the scoreboard. And at the end of 80 minutes, look up and see what the scoreboard tells you.
This is the DSPN.